All right, well, let's get started. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a 2 hour and 22-minute film of Indiana Jones on his final crusade, the last crusade. And I'm a big fan. I grew up with Indiana Jones, man. All three movies. And when we went to see the fourth one, I was there for that in theaters over a decade ago, I guess, at this point. Okay, and I've always cherished him as an idol, right? Like, this is my hero, Indiana Jones. Maybe not as much, today, but as a kid, big influence, man. Love him to death. The most interesting, kick-ass action hero, right? And just intelligent. And so I love Indiana Jones. I do, and I hate saying this, but this movie is just such a mixed bag. We're going to have to break this down into categories because I have quite a bit to say. Stick around because we might hit your category pretty quick on what you want me to say about the film. But to start us off, story. First 20 minutes of the film, Indy's back. Like, dude, it was so good. The only thing that wasn't good was the CGI. The CGI was, for a $300 million film, this is the quality of CGI we got. It wasn't always bad throughout the whole film, but man, that first 20 minutes is almost all CGI, so it desperately needed to be good quality. They de-aged, Harrison Ford, like from the trailer where, they ripped the bag off and there he is, young Harrison Ford. That's the first 20 minutes of the film. He's fucking around with the Nazis again, it was cool. He's going after something, obviously, with his buddy Basil Shaw, who's played by Toby Jones. Now, I don't believe this is a previous character in the Indiana Jones series, but he's introduced here. It didn't feel totally shoehorned. It felt fine. And Toby Jones he's an exceptional actor. So he added a little bit of charisma to the beginning of the film, the 20 minutes, because he's kind of nervous. He's shy. He's not a daredevil. He's not going to jump off a 100-mile-per-hour train into a river unless he desperately has to, because his life depends on it. But anyway, he added some great character to the beginning. And then the rest of the film, it's not a slog, but the chase scenes are far longer than they had any right to be. They could have been shortened quite a bit. The cave spelunking, puzzle solving, and the treasure itself, actually, I was invested in what they were trying to find, how they were going to find it, and how they were putting puzzle pieces together in order to find it. So for me, that aspect of the film worked. Unfortunately, though, there's really no drive. The story was okay. The writing was competent. I do give respect to the writers. It's not like they just had some really cheap, terrible writers come in and make an Indiana Jones film. You can tell they put care into some scenes, but the writing was actually fairly okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and that's the first thing I always take notice to in films is the writing. And here it was all right. It was all right. But for acting, Harrison Ford kills it. I mean, he just slips into it like it's a pre-worn glove. I mean, he's back. It's an older Indiana Jones. It's a little bit of a different take on the character. Granted, we kind of saw the older Indiana Jones about a decade ago with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But, it still works here. So I commend him for that. Much obliged for, reprising the role. Love him to death. It's just he's getting older, and you can only expect so much from an 80-year-old man. I'm just going to say it outright. Mads Mikkelsen. Listen, Casino Royale is one of my favorite films and one of my favorite James Bond films of all time. And Mads Mikkelsen is a phenomenal villain from that movie. And yet again, phenomenal villain here. He steals the show. No questions asked. He's a great actor. Whenever he was on screen, man, and they did really good de-aging CGI on him, I must say real quick. For some reason, they did a great job with his CGI and not so great of a job with Harrison Ford's CGI. But whatever. Every time he was on screen, you felt the intimidation. You felt the, oh shit, he's ready to, fuck some people up to get what he wants. And that's awesome. And he comes off as intelligent. He's still evil. I mean, he is a Nazi for sure. But the problem is they don't really give him a proper clear drive. So essentially, spoiler alert, he wants to go back in time and kill the Fuhrer, Hitler. And he wants to, I don't know what he wants to do now that I think about it. I don't know if he wants to become the Fuhrer. I don't know if he wants to lead the Nazis to a victory, which he kind of briefly states. It's not really given any more depth than, unlike the Fuhrer, I'm gonna win. And it's like, wait, what? So what are you exactly doing? What are we doing here? But anyway, no big deal. The acting was phenomenal, and he absolutely carried the film when it came to, the villains. And he's got his henchmen. He's got the big, bulky brute who somehow gets taken out by a little kid. Granted, the scene does make sense, but it was just like a little too coincidental. Which brings me to the kid, Teddy. Ooh, no. Listen, Shorty, whatever you want to call him, but the little kid in Temple of Doom who goes, Dr. Jones, right? Great character, lovable, awesome, fun, energetic, charismatic, and maybe that's because of his age, but he was really cool, right? And I think they attempted to go for that with Teddy here, but dude, there was like a scene he was decent at, and that was like when you're first introduced to him, and then that was it, dude. But basically, he's Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena Shaw. He's basically her Short Round, if that makes sense. But he didn't do that very good of a job, and unfortunately, and I hate dissing actors for poor performance, but here I'm sorry, man. I don't want to hate on him. I don't want to send any hate his way. He just wasn't tailor fit for this film and for this role. As for Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, now here comes the most controversial one that everybody's talking about online. She's great at what she does, but for an action adventure, especially an Indiana Jones film, man, this wasn't it. It wasn't it, and it wasn't her acting that was so terrible. I think it was the script she was given. Unfortunately, here's where the writing takes a dip. Her character, man, was written so poorly, in my opinion. She's not interesting. She conveys her intelligence by, oh, well, my dad taught me it. And it's just like, what? You can't add any more depth to that. It's just, oh, my dad taught me this. I learned this when I was 7 years old, or in 7th grade, or whatever she said. And it was just like, dude, this is so cheap. There's no depth. There's not enough build for her character. I feel like they should have focused another 5 minutes on her and just to build her up a little more. The acting was fine. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge did a good job. I think it was what she was given that was poor. Her character just was so unlikable and so bland. And her only drive throughout the entire film was money. Money. That's it. Greed. She just wanted to make a quick buck off everything. Throughout the film, you kind of learn like maybe that's not all she was in it for, but they don't do enough with that. They just kind of go, well, nobody learns 7 notebooks word for word, like, eidetic memory for the sake of money. And Indiana Jones basically recites that line. That was almost word for word. But basically that's what he says, and that's it. That's all the explanation you get. And, Indy's pretty noble. He's a pretty noble dude. He doesn't really do it for money. He wants to take these ancient artifacts, throw them in a museum, and allow history to be told to a new generation so we can either learn from mistakes, appreciate what was done in the past, and that kind of stuff. I mean, he's a history teacher and an archaeologist. More like a grave robber, but hey, it's fine, Name him what you will. But he's noble at the end of the day, right? He's got noble intentions with his adventures. And unfortunately, she just wants money. And it brings about this conflict between the two, but dude, they've got no chemistry together on screen. They just feel so weak when they're talking back and forth to one another. And every scene where she's explaining what has to be done to solve puzzles and do this, that, and the other, Indy could be doing. And granted, she doesn't do every single scene of puzzle solving. Indy still does a majority of them. But there's a scene on the boat where they're all taken hostage, and she's basically walking in a big circle like, oh, I know everything. I can read it backwards. And Indy's just sitting there like, why is Indiana Jones not explaining this? If he's a godfather, why don't they put a gun to her head and have him explain everything? By force, obviously. That would have made so much more sense. But regardless, it was really the only scene I just didn't enjoy when it came to like solving a new puzzles to the overarching plot. But that's just me. Maybe you enjoyed it. I'm not sure. Everybody's got different opinions, and you are entitled to it. I did not enjoy it until the very end, where she revealed, oh, I'm gonna fuck him up, right? But she did tell them all the information that was on the plate when they had absolutely no clue. And if she was gonna be noble in the end, she just should have stayed noble throughout the entire thing and just lied to him straight up and just came up with something on the spot. That would have been smart. It would have builded her character a little more, and I would have been like, oh, maybe she does have noble intentions. But unfortunately, she gives all the villains all the information and then decides to save everybody. And it's like, dude. But anyway, and then Antonio Banderas. I mean, man, I love this guy. And he comes in and he gives off all this energy, and he looks like he's happy to be there. And it's like, oh, you know, that's my guy. Like, but he killed it. Problem is, he has 4 lines and he's in about 3 or 4 scenes, and that's it. Bro, he's so underutilized, and I was so mad about it. The movie does uphold violence quite a bit. So people do die, people do get shot, there is blood, and there is a lot of brutality to the kills in this film, surprisingly. And I say it's surprising because Disney owns the rights to this now. And God forbid they ever show blood or violence in any sort of brutal way to an audience, right? It's always got to be family friendly for the broader audience so they can make more profit. But here, nope, they stayed true to OG Indiana Jones. There's just a lot of brutality behind the punches. You know, they did a really good job with that, whether they be environmental kills or mano-a-mano punching, and so the violence was good. In fact, Olivier Richter's, or Olivier, however you pronounce it, he plays the big henchman, and I thought he did a great job. I mean, he really stood out in the film. Like, you were like, holy shit, I do not want to tussle with this guy. And Indy even gets that vibe where he's like, this dude's too big for me. And it's like, you know, it's fun, you know, and it's good. So I liked his acting. I thought he did a phenomenal job. He was always intimidating. But here comes my next problem with the acting. We were somewhat promised that there was going to be a bunch of original characters returning here, and that being John Rhys Davies, or John Rhys Davies, however you pronounce his name, I think that's right. But the guy who plays Sala, right? And Karen Allen, the woman that plays Marion Ravenwood, right? They come back. Problem is, Sala has about 3-4 minutes worth of screen time, and Marion has 2.5 minutes of screen time, and that's it. That's all you get. No more. And as for Indiana Jones' son, they kind of do a really big disservice to the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where, you know, Indiana Jones' son was finding a new passion for wanting to be an archaeologist or a history buff, and, you know, he almost puts the hat on, and then Indy snags it from his hand right as, you know, him and Marion get either remarried or married. I can't recall. I haven't seen it in a while. But when they get married, right, it's like, oh, he could be the next Indiana Jones movie. Did it feel earned in the film? It could have been better, you know. He could have had a better way to earn the hat, right? And this movie totally could have worked with him and made him a cool character. But unfortunately, obviously, Shia LaBeouf can't come back. And it sucks because I would love to see him come back. Because, listen, even if the character was not received well, you can still do good writing, which the writing here was fairly competent for the most part, right? And you can do good writing, and you can bring the character back and make him better than ever and make him cool, right? You can do that. Unfortunately, they didn't do that here, and it just hurts. And instead, they kill him off. So they actually kill him off screen. He enlisted in the war to piss off Indiana Jones, and he died in combat, or at least that's what we can safely infer. And then Marion gets pretty much inconsolable, and Indy doesn't know what to do about it. He can't really help her out in the right way, so they split up. They file for divorce and stuff. Most of the acting was fine. The kid that played Teddy I didn't like, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, though a good actor, not a good pick for this film. It just didn't suit her, and the chemistry between her and Harrison Ford felt so forced. So for me, it just didn't work. Here comes the big question, though. Is this better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? In some aspects, I think yes. In some aspects, no. So the relationships in this film, not great. The relationships in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull were far better and just more fun. I mean, it was natural, it was fun, the characters had chemistry for the most part, and it felt more like in line with Indiana Jones, like the style of comedy. The action in this film is good. I don't know. It's kind of par for par with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The action's pretty, I don't know. I'd say they're pretty much at the same level. Indy doesn't really do a whole lot when it comes to the action. He doesn't really kick a whole lot of ass. Obviously, he's older. He really can't. Indiana Jones uses his whip in a really cool way in the first 20 minutes of the film, but he basically never uses it again. So that kind of sucked. I was hoping to see a little more with that, but nope, that never really happens. The plot here was a little better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The treasure was better. The cave spelunking was better. The adventure itself felt a little more in place with Indiana Jones rather than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was kind of more of like a fantasy-looking thing, you know? And the Dial of Destiny follows more. It actually goes a little more into the history of like Greek mythology Greek history. Yeah, Greek mythology / history, whatever you want to call it. And that's my favorite, like, when it comes to history and mythologies, Greek is my favorite. It's such a cool world that was developed thousands of years ago. But anyway, I don't know. It's pretty par for par when it comes to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There's some aspects that are better, and there's some aspects that are worse. I'll let you decide. But if I were to rate this film with my very handy dandy special climate report meter, I think we're going to have to place it in lukewarm on the rating. The movie didn't need to be made, unfortunately. You know, The Last Crusade had a phenomenal ending where Indy, his father and Sala all ride off into the desert on horses, you know, with the sun setting, and then, you know, the credits rolling on the side as they slowly fade out of the shot. You know, that was awesome. What a great way to end the series. And I still think The Last Crusade is the final movie for me in the series. The way I look at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a bonus movie. It was just a big what if, right? It was a bonus movie for me. You can enjoy it, you can hate it. You can go both ways. It's really up to you. Obviously, it's the most controversial Indiana Jones film until now, in my opinion, because this one really doesn't do anything. You can go watch this film, and you'll leave this film, and you have gained nothing. You just get a fun adventure out of it. So, you know, it is what it is. But it just didn't add anything. It just didn't add anything. That's all I really have to say about it. What your takeaway is leaving the film is he had one last hurrah, he retired from teaching, and he's with Marion again, you know, on their off and on relationship, which is pretty much reestablished here. When you could leave Crystal Skull with, now he's got a happy family, a son who's starting to look up to him, even though he's never really been there for him. And then you can leave The Last Crusade with, what a kick-ass end to a series, right? But here, you go in, you come out, and you go, that's fine. So I'd have to give it that lukewarm rating. I do want to add, too, John Williams comes back to score this film. Praise the master of music, bro. That man is a national treasure. If they make a National Treasure 3, Nick Cage better be on the hunt for John Williams compositions. Because, like, holy shit, man. John Williams comes back and the music is so good. It's banging the whole time. I'm like, yes, this feels like the Indiana Jones vibe. So for me, John Williams, chef's kiss, brother. And I don't know if he's retired yet, but if this was his final movie to make music for, his music still slaps. I'd say it's an above average film. I don't think it's a 5 out of 10. It's 6 out of 10. Those are just my opinions. What are yours? Some of your thoughts below. Now, don't go hating on me because I didn't love the film. Don't go hating on me because I didn't bash it enough. I'm just giving y'all my fresh opinions having just come back from the theater. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy the film? Did you not enjoy the film? What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? Let me know down below. Let's just keep it civil. Let's keep it respectful. Anyway, that's about it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.